Welcome to our discussion of the high-level significant weather prognostic chart. And we'll start out talking about an overview of the chart. More or less, the chart starts where the low-level significant weather prognostic chart left off, which was 24,000 feet. So this chart starts at 25,000 feet, goes all the way up to 63,000 feet. And it gives you a forecast of weather conditions in the future. Significant weather meaning things like turbulence, volcanic ash. They'll also have thunderstorms on here. And of course, this is looking at in the future, so it's a forecast chart. They have very specific areas that they forecast for, charts that are more or less standard. And these are called ICAO areas, and they have a letter identifier. You don't need to know the letter identifier, you just should be aware that that is there. So you can go out to the Aviation Weather Center and click on these areas or these regions and look at the charts. Charts come out from Aviation Weather Center in coordination with the World Area Forecast Center in Washington, D.C. Comes out 4 times a day. These charts are a 24-hour forecast. So what's included in these charts? Well, pretty much the same things that you saw at the mid-levels, except you won't see any icing or clouds here. So let's start out with some of the elements. Thunderstorms, they plot thunderstorms the same way that they did on the mid-level chart, where they use a scalloped red line. Then they'll tell you that it's a cumulonimbus, and they'll give you the coverage, the bases, and the tops. Once again, similar to mid-level, the coverage is isolated, occasional, or frequent, and then the descriptor, sometimes you'll see embedded to indicate the thunderstorms are hidden from view. Here's examples, and these are very similar to the mid-level chart. The X's that you see indicate that it's below this prog level or the prog chart. This prog chart starts at 25,000 feet, so the X's indicate the thunderstorms start someplace below 25,000, and the tops are indicated there in hundreds of feet. Turbulence is shown with a yellow dash line to highlight or encompass the areas of turbulence. They give you the intensity symbol, and also they'll give you the vertical extent. Once again, the XXX indicates below the chart level. This chart is 25,000 feet, so it starts someplace below 25. Jet streams are very similar to what you saw in the mid-level. Once again, they plot the axis, and they'll indicate any jet stream with a green line that's greater than 80 knots. They indicate the strength of the jet, in other words, the wind speed, using flags. They'll tell you the height in a box beneath that wind speed, and that'll be in flight levels, which are hundreds of feet. They'll also use a double line to indicate changes in wind speed of more than 20 knots. If you see a box that has an extra set of numbers, that indicates the core of the jet. And what they mean by core is where the wind speeds are greater than 80 knots. So in this case, or this example, the wind speeds are greater than 80 knots between 21,000 and 34,000 feet. They only do that if the wind speeds are greater than 120 knots. They use standard symbology for fronts. They'll indicate surface fronts, location, and movement. They'll also tell you the height of the tropopause in hundreds of feet, and they'll indicate areas where you have relatively high tropopause and relatively low tropopause by the pentagon. They'll also indicate tropical cyclones, whether they be hurricanes, typhoons, or tropical storms. And they'll give them their names, and also they'll indicate with scalloped red lines the extent of the thunderstorms. And they also plot squall lines. They use a special symbol, which is a line with a V, and a squall line is lines of thunderstorms with 5/8 coverage or greater. Volcanic eruptions, they also use the Fez hat to indicate locations of volcanic eruptions. And then sandstorms are also plotted on this. They give you the bases and tops of sandstorms. So what do you use this chart for? Anytime you're flying at high altitudes internationally, but usually internationally. You could use it domestically also. The U.S. is big enough. But this chart is used quite a bit for international flight at altitudes above 25,000 feet. Dispatchers use this and put it in their package for the pilots to look at. So it gives you an overview kind of in the future. Remember, this is a 24-hour forecast. This is what the chart looks like. This is one projection. This is looking at North America and South America. You can see jet streams, thunderstorms, and you can see a lot of tropopause heights. And also areas of turbulence too. Here's another example. This is just a little different projection and zooming in a little bit more. Notice that in the upper right it gives you information about the cloud, the chart level, and also this is area B1 for example, and also gives you the valid time for this chart. Here's another example. This is looking at the Pacific. Also notice that they have major cities with dots and the first letter of the city. For example, in Australia, you can see a P for Perth. You could see on the Asian mainland, you can see H for Hong Kong. So Tokyo also is indicated, and also same thing with Honolulu. Here's another projection. This is looking at more or less the North Pole. Notice that the tropopause is very low over the North Pole and wherever the air is cold. There's also Mount Etna erupting on Sicily. So those are some examples of high-level significant weather prognostic charts. I hope you enjoyed this discussion.